Hello, dear people, and today we have the next episode of AAA, and we already have a replay that is actually not my own. I saw the end screens, it's a replay of Hexogen, and I said to myself, well, this amount of effort in probably one of the worst tier 10 ships has to be honored, and I mean, I can just talk about Austin as well. There's no problem about that. Austin is an interesting ship to talk about for sure. But as you can see, it's Hexogen. He's solo gaming in his Austin. That's what he likes to do a lot. Playing light cruiser, open water cruisers, or gunboat DDs solo, just farming people. And as you will see, this replay most likely ends up uh, in a very nice way. So, what do we have here? We have full tier 10 matchmaking. We only have one DD, which is pretty good for Austin. We have a fuck ton of cruisers. It's actually 6 cruisers, and 2 of them fairly dangerous for Hexogen. Venezia, Moskva, and Hindenburg are also not to joke about, especially since your SAP reload booster isn't doing too much. It's a carrier game. Well, just 1 second here. I actually want to activate Hydro and AA ranges. Since it's Hexogen's replay, the settings are obviously not saved. But yeah, it's the Austin. The Austin, in my opinion, a sad excuse for a tier 10 ship. Funnily enough, when it was released, or when it came to the release date, I was very, very chimpy. I really hated the idea of the ship, specifically because I like to play mainly DDs and then cruisers as well. So what does this ship do? Well, it's kind of a one trick as long as you have your reload boost up. So if you have your reload boost up, this ship is obviously able to do an insane amount of damage. Everyone knows that. The Austin with the SAP, if you get to go to a broadside that you can pen armor-wise, like 32 millimeters for example, or I don't actually know what the pen of Austin is. Should be around 40, I guess. So you pen like pretty much every cruiser broadside and potentially the USN BBs, but I'm not 100% sure. What you do pen is 32 millimeters, so obviously 32 millimeter BBs and cruisers, 30 millimeter cruisers, are going to heavily suffer against you. And here we can see it. It's potentially like over 1,000,000 DPM. And obviously, if the Yamato gives broadside like that, Hexogen has the reload boost ready. That's straight up round about 40 to 50k if you're really close. Might even be more. So why did I hate the idea of this ship? It's because if a player, like, it comes down to how patient is the Austin player pretty much. If the Austin player is reluctant to actually play the game and rather chooses to camp a lot and get into a very far forward position without being spotted, or just in generally camping and having his reload boost ready, you do have to respect that Austin the entire time with your cruiser or your DD. You don't want to get caught up in a Austin that has reload boost ready when you're in the DD. It's not a thing. Especially under 10 km, you don't want to suffer through it. Most DDs are pretty much fucked immediately. Especially slow DDs and fat DDs like Haaland, Smaland. Smaland has speed boost to dodge. But stuff like, for example, gearing or so, you can't really get spotted in front of the Austin. I hated that idea. I hated the idea of a very, very, let's say, unexperienced and shit player being able to press a button and make my life miserable. Thankfully, I was proven wrong, because the ship is such a sad excuse for a tier 10 if it doesn't have reload boost ready, and also the armor and HP pool are so sad that most players don't even play it. I would say that a lot of players do have the Austin, just because it's a thrilling thought to play the ship with above 1,000,000 potential DPM with the reload boost ready. But the overall gameplay, obviously, is 20 minutes long. Like, every game you potentially have to play for 20 minutes, and figuring out how to be useful in an Austin in a 20-minute long game is sometimes actually kind of hard, specifically because a lot of ships are complete counter, like heavy counters to you. We can, for example, talk about this Yamato or 32mm overmatch BBs in general. Those ships, you kind of have to dodge them or hope they're completely mentally dented. The Austin has 32mm side plating, which is kind of interesting to see. I'd love this concept on other cruisers as well. Maybe reduce their gimmicks and DPM a bit. That's the thing of overmatch, but give them like armor they can bounce stuff with or bad shots with, because interaction between AP or battleship AP shells and armor is fucked anyway. So even though you don't overmatch a Des Moines on deck and side with a Monty, you might still 15 to 20k him there. So I don't know if we specifically need a more overmatch, but the Austin has the issue that it doesn't have any armor against against 32mm overmatch, obviously because every single plating on the ship gets overmatched. Therefore, pretty much every shell that hits the center or like randomly, pretty much random on your ship, is going to be most likely a citadel, if not a pen, if not a citadel, then a pen, and you only have 35k HP. So you pretty much have to dodge the 32mm overmatch BBs. You either have to be behind islands for them, or you have to 100% make sure you dodge the shells. Otherwise, you're probably gonna end up with a very quick game in the Austin. It happened to me. I think there were lots of clips from other people getting fucked by a 32mm overmatch in Austin as well. Pretty much people just pointing their guns, shooting, and random two shells citadel you both, even though your nose in angled or something. So that's obviously an interesting aspect. But then again, the 32mm overmatch allows you against, let's say, less experienced players or bad shots, or like bad BB players, you can bounce an interesting amount of shots and salvos close up. If they shoot your main armor belt or side plating, not main armor belt, the side plating is 32mm. If you manage to get the shot in a auto bounce angle, you can bounce it obviously, because only Yamato, Shiki, Satsuma, and Incomp overmatch 32. So the rest of the battleships, even 30mm overmatch, you can theoretically bounce. Problem is just, if the shell doesn't hit your side plating but your nose, you might still end up with a citadel. And then again, it comes back to the shit HP pool. I mean, yeah, with 35k, two citadels from a battleship are pretty much game over for you. Also, you don't shatter any HE, and everything on your ship gets broken when you get HE spammed. So, in my opinion, just straight up a sad excuse for a tier 10, because it's all revolving around one stupid fucking gimmick that counters specific ships heavily and doesn't do much against others. I mean, a battleship can actually heal through, or like, not heal through, but ignore most of the damage. You're not gonna death strike a battleship. The only battleships that really have to care a bit, probably Thunderer, Reaper, like the Frenchies and Thunderer, because they don't have a super heal and they get penned everywhere, so 50-60k pen damage with SAP is kinda hard to tank in one go and still survive afterwards if you're getting focused by other ships as well. So Hexogen here, playing very aggressively, by the way. I like it a lot. Haven is a obviously insanely good map for Austin. I mean, if you get mountain range in an Austin, you're pretty much just fucked. If you get ocean in an Austin, it's probably fucked as well. But Hexogen can make use on this map of a lot of islands, or generally Austin players could make use of a lot of islands here, and this Des Moines is probably dead by now. And as you can see here, you can use the island, stay undetected, rotate, and then come up at a fortunate angle or very, very favorable angle towards the enemy and just delete him. That's it. There's it. So the whole gameplay of the ship is, if the enemy makes a mistake and you know what you're doing and you have your gimmick ready, the enemy is dead. I kinda hate this idea. Like, why do you have to have such a stupid ass glass cannon or one trick? It's specifically bad because there are lots of unexperienced DD players that just get murdered by that ship. DD players that are unable to dodge it. Also, it correlates very well, or it scales very well with divisions that allow the Austin to work. Obviously, a smoked up Austin with a spotter, or generally an Austin with a 12 km raider, for example, a Moskva, tends to be way more dangerous for the enemy team than a solo Austin. Just because you can assure spotting on DDs pretty much. So if the DD smokes up, Austin can't really do much, doesn't get raider, thank God for that. But If your teammate, for example, can radar him out, it's a whole different story. So yeah, as said, I was really scared when they announced it. I really hated the idea. I hated this ship. I was disgusted by the idea. I still am, because as I said, it boils down to the patience the enemy Austin player has. I mean, if he hates damage and if he refuses to play the game just because he's waiting for you or your division, for example, you're a cruiser and a DD or you're two DDs, and he specifically waits for you to push up, get spotted or something, and he only uses his reload booster for that, he can be a menace, because there's very little you can do. I mean, if you're a double DD, it's probably easier just because one DD could spot him. Austin doesn't get radar. But other than that, it's or Austin players that are very late into the game get to a cap very late. You don't know yet that he's actually there, and randomly he pops up after 5 minutes and the reload boosts you. It happened to me. It's really disgusting. I hate it a lot, especially because with the reload booster and SAP, it's very unlikely you dodge all the damage in a DD. It's very unlikely. The amount of shells the ship can shit out then is kind of ridiculous. So, I mean, Hexogen here has a very unfavorable matchmaking, to be honest. The map is allowing him to actually do something, and I'm very impressed that... you will see the end screens in the end, and obviously the results, but I'm very impressed the game ended up like this with this kind of matchmaking. Obviously, certain ships, just because you get tier 8 matchmaking or tier 9 matchmaking in Austin, still doesn't mean you get a lot of damage. I mean, most of the ships on tier 8 and 9, you still don't pen a lot with SAP. For example, you see a lot of German battleships on tier 8 and something. You get your SAP or your HE on the superstructure, but the rest of the ship is pretty much impenetrable for you. So it's not a damage farmer either. And the patience you have to actually have to make this ship work at a high level, to like leaderboard it, to get high average damages solo or with even with a division or a smoke or whatever, is insane. It's because you're pretty much rendered fucktard useless if you don't have your reload boost ready. And that's legit the ship. The reload boost. That's why you play it. That's probably why it's interesting. The rest is just like, meh, nice to have. 32mm armor. Oh, it's kind of interesting on the cruiser. Still get overmatched on ass and nose. You have some Fletcher torps, like here you can see he's torping a bit. It's pretty much like the, what is it, Italian torps. You shit them out from left to right, and you randomly get hits at some point. What do you have? You have good AA. I mean, you're still not going to enjoy carrier spotting for a long time because you spotted for the enemy team, and generally Austin doesn't like to get shot at. So yeah, you might swat the planes, but the spotting might kill you anyways, because carriers are fun. As Hydro and heal, I think the heal is improved. Doesn't really matter to me anyways though. So yeah, Hexogen has to be really careful here. As I said, Salem and Des Moines. The improved pen angles allow them to actually Citadel Austin at very, very unfortunate angles. So you can't just randomly use all your front guns at will. Yeah, but in my opinion, they should just probably get rid of the fucking reload boost or nerf the reload boost to 50% and enhance the... like, if you reduce it to 50%, reduce the duration maybe, so it's enough for a DD or nice damage on a cruiser, but not straight up killing it. And then maybe reduce the overall reload. In my opinion, I would have liked to see the reload reduced, the SAP gone, and keep the reload booster. Just make it an AP SAP ship, AP HE ship with a better base reload, and stop this stupid SAP. Because I'm also going to make a Sherman video, which is kind of the same logic. The SAP just makes ships so retarded, it's insane. Look at this alpha. The Salem comes on flat broadside, turns immediately in, but it's already too late. I think he could have even had like 10 to 15k more and you would have died. So now Hexogen had his fun, the Salem is dead, and pretty much now he has to go dark and run away again, because his reload boost is up in 1 minute 30, after all. He procced Halsey. Obviously, if he enjoys Austin a lot, so obviously he has Halsey on it. Kinda interesting, because if he plays Halsey on Austin, he can't really use him for another cruiser, because I saw it already. His captain spec for Austin is kind of specific for the ship, which is also mandatory because normally you always spec the same thing on every cruiser. The only cruisers that kind of fall out of the scheme or the system are the very light ones that either have a caliber below, what is it, 150 or something, or the ones that have AP only, like Minotaur. So it's not a lot. It's like Colbert, Smolly, Austin, and Minnow, and the rest of the cruisers you can pretty much spec the same, well, whatever you want. I always use the same spec pretty much. It's the concealment, top grade. Is it top grade? Yeah, it's called top grade gunner. But obviously on the ship it changes a lot. So yeah, the base reload is now actually kind of nice. It has been reduced by probably around 2 seconds, roundabout, with Adrenaline Rush 10% and Halsey 20%. And he's pretty much doing a fantastic job at using the islands. As I said, Haven very favorable, using the islands to his advantage, staying undetected or coming up at unsuspecting angles. The enemy has no clue kind of where to angle to. He also, I don't know, uses his team as bait, in the sense that obviously the enemy wants to go to the nearest group of his teammates, or like the Minotaur, Smolly, Nevsky, or they want to go towards the carrier and the cap, and he's kind of up at the, what is it, 8, 9, 10 line. So, oh, quick little break screen, okay. And he stays in the 8, 9, 10 line to get the broadsides, or pretty much get unspotted on the onto the broadside of the unsuspecting enemies. So we are already looking at 7 kills, high cal, confid, even a cap assist? Yeah, true. He was very aggressive in being, got a cap assist there. And now it's pretty much just free farming. I do believe that the general gameplay that revolves around Austin is not very sought after. I mean, you can see the ship isn't very liked by the community. Not a lot of players play it. I would still say that it's kind of funny in some situations if you play it, but the amount of games that are frustrating are just overwhelmingly they're overwhelming in numbers. I wouldn't want to play it anymore. I think it doesn't give you a lot of freedom to maneuver around or carry games with. Hexo seems to like it. I don't know. I would probably assume he likes the challenge. That's kind of the player that he is. He definitely likes these very high risk, high reward ships where you have pretty much paper thin armor, but you can, if you're positioning very well and you know what you're doing, you can get away with insanely nice plays and huge damage numbers and kill numbers, obviously. So yeah, it's kind of the ship for him. I wouldn't get an Austin replay myself if I'm not smoke botted. Well, we have the end screens here. That's why I took the replay in general. You have the 272k solo. Actually doesn't look that much, but then again you have to respect the fact that it's an Austin, as well as full tier 10 matchmaking with a carrier. He has AA expert, love to see that achievement. In general, just insanely well played. He has 3,800 base, pretty much guaranteed, or like it's not that that surprising. As you could see, he deleted a lot of cruisers with his reload boosters. He got plane kills. He got a cap assist. So definitely nice amount of base XP there. What do we have as well? Here we can see what he actually shot at. So pretty much 2 reload boosts on the Yamato granted him 80k. I don't know. Did he use 2? He used at least 1. I think he used 2 on the Yamato. 80k. It's pretty cool. But other than the reload boost, he didn't do too much damage to that. The Venezia 50k, pretty cool. Pretty nice. Salem 40, that's with a torp and a reload boost. I think the Salem could have had more HP and you would have still killed him. Colombo is just a bit of pew pew. Des Moines was a reload boost. He could have also been pretty much... He could have been full HP. That Des Moines was coming around flat broadside at like 6 or 7 km. I think the The Moin could have been definitely full HP and he would have still died to the reload boost. And then you have the Schlieffen, and then sadly you can't see what else he shot at. Then obviously the plane kills. How much fire damage does he have? 17k. Obviously it's a pretty much an SAP one trick. As you can see, 186 through SAP, then a few torpedoes. It's like, as I said, like the Italian torps. You shit them out left, right, and randomly you hit one or two. Obviously they're pretty nice to have in a YOLO situation, that's for sure. Like if you actually get into a position where you can rush a BB and pretty much bounce his shots, or in the position where an enemy cruiser or BB tries to rush around a corner. Having 5 Fletcher torps on each side is kinda nice to have, though then again it's not enough to actually kill most tier 9 or 10 BBs in one go, which instantly poses problems for the Austin. It's a gimmik powerhouse. It's pretty much living off its consumables, and probably the 32mm armor makes it kinda okay-ish. I think other players, streamers or YouTubers, put the Austin as one of the worst tier 10s, if not the worst tier 10. I would definitely agree with that. The Austin and Gibraltar are probably by far the most unfun to play, the ships with the least impact on tier 10, like cruiser wise. It can't really carry itself unless the enemy is stupid. But coming back to the thing that I said, that I hated the concept of Austin, and I still hate it. It's a problem when the Austin player in the enemy team is patient and decent, or really good. If that happens and you're in an unfortunate ship, you really have to care. You don't want to get caught, for example, in a Hindenburg, something that gets penned by the SAP and is very slow to turn and dodge. You don't want to get caught in front of the Austin. There's no way. Or you don't want him to come up on your broadside. Very unlikely to happen in a Hindenburg, but DDs are the next thing that I would then say have to play a lot different if there's a good Austin player in the enemy team. If you get caught once, your game is pretty much over if you're unfortunate. No, not even if you're unfortunate, your game is pretty much over. Specifically in the fat DDs, as I said, that can't dodge. And in the French ones, for example, you can dodge a lot, but then again, you can't heal the damage. So if he gets like 2 or 3 shots with the reload boost on your broadside, it's not a good look for you, Chief. It's not really good. Then we have the captain spec for Mr. Hexogen as well. And there you can see that is actually not a normal cruiser build. That is actually very specific for Austin. So what does he have here? The modules are normal, reload. Now you don't want to really spec range. I think it has like 15-16 km base range, which is already enough. You have prop mod, as I said, for the cruisers. Rudder shift is just insanely useless. If you want to play rudder spec, you would probably drop the concealment mod. Pretty sure. You have the main gun accuracy, and you have the hydro module, because in this slot there would be either rudder. It's obvious. I mean, you can just drop the normal module and get the hydro duration. It's pretty nice to have if you have the coal in the modules. So for the captain specs, I mean, obviously he dropped top grade gunner with the enhanced SAP damage and the fire chance, and then he also dropped another 3-pointer for 3 1-pointers, and that is because the Austin gets 4 base heals, which means you don't really need Superintendent for another heal, and the reload boost is obviously unlimited. So yeah, he drops Superintendent here, goes for the consumable reload, the main guns, like the armor type switch, the improved one from Halsey, and last stand and incoming fire alert. Very interesting that he plays incoming fire alert and priority target. Kind of shows that this ship is really paper, and you really have to care at who's shooting you, from where you're getting shot at, and in general where you are. Like, you have to be really careful. One salvo can pretty much delete you. Even a Ven salvo can more than half HP you if you're unlucky. So yeah. Also, Stalingrads, for example, are a pain in the ass to deal with in Austin. There are so many ships that are a pain to deal with. Yeah. But anyway, to come to a close, I'm very happy that Austin isn't played much more, and that people are not spamming it and camping behind rocks. Otherwise, it would be a very grim time for DDs for sure. So yeah, I've been proven wrong. Obviously, the ship doesn't offer a lot of fun and overpowered broken gameplay as I expected, so people are not playing it a lot. which means I get to play my DDs more freely. I'm very happy about that. And with that, I obviously thank Hexogen for sending in the replay. I think it's very rare to see a solo Austin gameplay that is that structured and that well thought through with such high rewards in this kind of matchmaking. So thank you again for sending it in. I think you have to honor the man for actually being so, let's say, weird that he plays Austin solo a lot. Yeah, but that's it for me. And I'm going to make another video about another SAP ship from the Americans as well. I think SAP is not a good ammo type, and Austin with the reload boost just gets to prove that. Having a one trick delete gimmick is kinda overkill in my opinion, even if the ship is paper. I don't really like the concept. You could make so much more interesting concepts out of ships and introduce like more balanced stuff in my opinion. It is balanced, yeah, because there's a whole list of ships that counter it. But in the end, there's also a whole list of ships that don't get to play the game against you if you're really really cautious and experienced about your positioning, which is kind of sad. So that's it. Have a nice day and see you probably tomorrow.